everyone, welcome back to Jingle All The Way. My name is Tina Bauer. I'm from Bittersweet Quilt Shop in Pinconning, Michigan. In today's class, we're going to go ahead and learn how to make this cute little bowl filler. This is called the Gift Bowl Filler, and you're going to find it on page 25 of our book. And I'm going to go ahead and go through our materials list. If you have not joined us in the previous video, this is the second class of 6 classes. And we're going to go ahead and work on this. It's so cute and it's easy to do. I'm going to start out with the easiest ones and work our way up to the little more difficult. Not that they're that difficult, but they just get a little more complicated. A little bit, not that bad. All right, so the materials list that we need for this class is you're going to go ahead and need your piece of gray background. Now I'm just using a woven. You could use a linen if you wanted to. This is 5 by 5. You need a piece of gray wool that's exactly the same size, 5 by 5. You're going to need a piece of, let's see here, red plaid. And I want to talk to you about this on the materials list. I told you what size you needed of this red plaid. However, we only need a small portion of this, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. I don't want you to go ahead and slap on the piece of red wool and take up too much space, and I'll tell you in a minute. So you need the red plaid. You're also going to need the, see, you've got your green wool. That's going to be for your ribbon. And for my ribbon, I'm going to be using my evergreen color. And then you need a piece of green for your holly leaves. So this is my holly leaf, so I've got a piece of wool there, a thread. All right, then you need a piece of red for your berries, and I have a different shade of red for my berry. And this one, of course, you can tell has been dyed. And then you have a piece of tan, and that's going to be for the tag. For an embellishment, you are going to need an 18-inch piece of chenille yarn, and that's good to finish it all the way around the outer edge. And I have mine here somewhere. We'll have to find it. It's here somewhere, so we'll find it in a minute. All right, so for the chenille yarn, I just picked that up in our embellishment kit that we sold in the store. That was in there. Oh, here it is. But I just bought that at Walmart, I think, or in our area, we have a store called Meijer. It's a grocery store, but they also have home goods. So, and it's just a piece of chenille yarn. So I don't knit or crochet, so I don't know a lot about yarn, but this is a piece of chenille. And you can get it in this huge skein. Yeah, I think it's called skein. You don't need that much, okay? You only need about 18 inches. I think we cut ours at 22 inches, give you a little extra. Okay, so those are the embellishments that you're going to need. And of course, you need some matching thread. All right, give me a second. We'll go ahead and we'll get started on our second session for Jingle All The Way. All right, so what we're going to start out with is our pattern. And the pattern for this project is going to be, say we're going to be cutting out the little present, the holly, the tag, and the berry, and then the ribbon that goes on the outside of the box. So the pattern for this is actually on page 25, and you can see the pattern here. I do want to talk a little bit about how this pattern is laid out. You're going to see some dashed lines, and usually you're going to see them right here on the top of the box. Those dashed lines indicate that that piece, this box, goes underneath this green ribbon. And then you're going to also see that in, let's see, the holly berry. So if you look at the berry in the center, you'll see these dashed lines. All right, and so that means, so if these dashed lines were the outer edge of this berry, that would mean the berry goes underneath the holly leaf. But the dashed lines are actually connected to the holly. So that means that the holly goes underneath the berry. I hope that makes sense. So that's what the dashed lines indicate. And it indicates it here in the ribbon and here in the ribbon. All right, so today we're gonna go ahead and use Steam A Seam 2 Light. Now Steam A Seam 2 Light has a surface with the yellow grids and then has the paper on the back. I explained this in the first video. So we're going to leave the paper on the back here. And what I've done is I've done a cluster. And I did this for a reason. So I went in and I laid down my piece of Steam A Seam on top of my pattern. And I took my fine Sharpie marker and I traced that out. So I've got just the box, and I wrote on here box. Then I moved my piece of Steam A Seam over to the top of the lid, and then I traced the top of the lid. And I marked it top. Then I marked the middle ribbon, and then it's also tagged there. It says middle. I got the berry is there. Of course, it's the only round thing, so I didn't mark it berry. Then I traced the tag. And then we have 3 different pieces of holly leaf. And they're kind of in a cluster. Did you notice that? And the reason why I put them in a cluster is so that when I press them onto my piece of wool, and I'm gonna show you that in a second. Sorry, gotta get back here underneath the camera. I'm cutting out just my piece of holly leaves right now because I've got those clustered together. There we go. Let's get that out of the way just for a minute. And remember, when I showed you in the first video, we do not cut on the line. We only cut around each piece. We normally leave about 1/8 of an inch. That's all you really need to do. Right now I'm doing a cluster. So I'm pulling out, let's move our book out of the way now. I'm pulling out my piece of green wool. And remember, this is dyed. So what color do I want my holly leaves to be? If I want it to be really dark, look at over here in this corner. It's very, very dark dye. Over here, it's really light. And because I'm going to be using a dark colored ribbon, I think I want my holly leaves to be a lighter green. So it looks like this side is lighter than this side. So I'm going to take this whole cluster. I'm pulling off the paper back. Now this is a little tip that I want to tell you. If you go to pull the paper off the back and the product does not stay to the front of the paper, the front of the paper is the side that you have printed on with your Sharpie pen. If it doesn't stay, take your fingernail and pull the product over onto the side it's supposed to be on, which is the top. Sometimes if it's humid, it may come off with a plain piece of paper. You don't want that. You want to make sure that the sticky side stays on the side that you've got your printing. All right, and if that happens, I've done it many, many times. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that right there. So I've just used an entire cluster. Now I could also, like right now, I can still position this somewhere else if I wanted to, and I'm going to put it over here. I try to save as much wool as I possibly can save. I need to get my iron nice and hot. I'm going to go ahead and cut out all of my pieces at this point. I'm going to put them all onto my wool. I'm going to use dry heat, iron them down, and then I'm going to cut them out on the line. And then we'll come back in a second and we're going to go ahead and start layering all of our wool pieces. All right, welcome back everyone. So I have my piece of evergreen sitting here on my cutting surface right now. Actually, this is my wool side of my mat. But I wanted you to do me a favor before you cut anything out of this piece. Now, in the description, for me, this is my evergreen piece. What I need you to do before you cut any other piece out of this is I want you to cut a piece that is 6.5 by 9.5, this large chunk. I need you to cut that out and set that aside. If you need to put a little sticker on it that says do not cut from this piece, we need this later in a project that's coming down the trunk here, okay? So cut that out and set it aside. And then this is the piece that you can cut all different kinds of components out of later. So now I'm using this for my ribbon. So I've already adhered the top and the middle of the ribbon on here. As you can see, I don't really waste much. I would have put this over here, but there wasn't enough room. So I'm going to cut those out. And I need you to do the same sort of thing with your large chunk of red. And I'm telling you this because if you bought a kit and the piece of wool is exactly the size that I suggested for the kits, then if you do not take the box, see this is the box that we need to do right now, it needs to go in any bottom corner because later on we're going to take this large piece and we are going to be making our stocking out of it. And in order for us to have enough room, I'm just going to show you because my stocking's not done yet. In order for us to have enough room, you have to take just a corner over here because the stocking takes up a lot of space. So from this piece, only cut out from this little corner here, okay? And don't forget, you're going to be cutting this out now. I already went ahead. Oh, I should have just mentioned this again. When you're pressing this, you're using dry heat in an up and down motion, okay? We are not sliding it back and forth, just up and down. Gives it plenty of time to go ahead and adhere. And once it adheres, let it cool for a second. Well, probably about 3-4 seconds. Then cut out your piece on the line. So we're gonna go ahead and do that real quickly. And then we're gonna go ahead and start building our little gift box that we're doing. All right, so let's cut this out. And I like to use Steam-A-Seam to light because it really is tacky. However, if you're doing some very small items and you really need to just get in there and stitch them real quick, then that's when I feel like Heat and Bond Feather Light is a better product. Okay, so in my original, I have my lines because my piece of gray has lines in it. So I have it going up and down, and I'm going to just replicate it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull off the back paper from this. And now all of my product, as you can see, is on the back side of this. Decide how you want your box to look. I'm just going to put it down just like so. And this is, don't forget, this is repositionable at this point. See how it just sticks on and it comes off? What I like about Heat and Bond Light, if I push it down real nice, I can move this around, take it in the car. Everything's already down, and I have not actually used the iron yet. And then that way it doesn't really fall off my project. I can always reposition it again. All right, so I did that. Oh, and you know what? I'm sorry. We need to cut out the ribbon. So let's do that real quickly. These are my Karen K Buckley scissors, the serrated edge. I like these for my wool because my wool doesn't slip when I'm cutting it. I don't know, the serrated edges are very, very nice, but I also like the silicone handles that are on this. They are larger and they don't hurt my hands. And sometimes when I'm cutting out an entire project, you know, when you're using scissors, metal scissors, they can start to hurt your hands after a while. All right, let's cut this out. There we go. Got that piece. And we have this piece. Sorry guys, I should have cut this out before we went ahead, but it only takes a few seconds here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead now. I've got the middle, and the middle indicates in the pattern that it goes, I believe, underneath the top. I'm pretty sure it does. All right, so we're gonna put that up the middle, right where you want it. I think I'm gonna go this way because this has a sharper edge on this bottom. There, and then take the top. We're gonna layer that down. There we go, put that across the top, like so. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and take our holly. Now what you could do is you could go ahead and stitch this all down. You're gonna do a blanket stitch in red around. You'll start here, stitch, stitch, stop. You can drag, if you want, your thread over here and continue with the blanket stitch around. You could also tie it off there and restart over here. Totally up to you. You're not gonna see underneath this because it's a little pillow, so it doesn't really matter. And then you're gonna come around here and you're gonna do a blanket stitch up and down this green. On mine, I did the top all the way around, and then I came down and did the top, the side, the bottom, and the top. So you can do that before you lay down your green holly. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it like so, because I am not going to demonstrate how to stitch this one because we did that in the first video. There we go. Just laying all this down. All right. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and position this where I need it. I'm gonna go ahead and stitch everything in place. Then we will come back and I'm gonna show you something a little bit different to do with this little berry. Instead of doing a whip stitch, I'm gonna show you how to do a blanket stitch that starts in the center of this berry and goes all the way to the outer edge. Now, she doesn't show you this in the book, but I thought, why not? I've already showed you how to do a whip stitch and a blanket stitch, but I'll show you how to do this great big blanket stitch so it comes to the center of your berry. So we'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll also adhere this down, and this is the little gift tag. And with this, we're gonna go ahead and do a blanket stitch all the way around it as well. We'll come back after that, we'll do a chain stitch, some colonial knots, and then we're gonna go ahead and do a, let's see, a straight stitch to do the words to, and I'll show you how to do that since we've not done that yet. All right, everyone, I've got everything stitched down now and in place. I've stitched down my holly leaves. I have ironed down my berry. I stitched down with a blanket stitch my to tag, my little gift tag, and I did a chain stitch. These stitches I've shown you in the first video, which would be the blanket stitch, the chain stitch, and a whip stitch. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna do a blanket stitch on this large berry. So I'm gonna go ahead and load my needle while I'm talking about this. So the reason why we do a blanket stitch on these large berries, well, it's not, this is a large berry here, but if you're doing a small project and there's numerous small berries, This is how I adhere, or stitch down, I have to say, not adhere, how I stitch down all my berries. And I did learn this from my friend Lisa. She's the queen of wool applique. She is from Primitive Gatherings. And I have learned over the years many things from her. She's a great teacher. She has a great book, and I will show you that book. How about in the next video? And if you enjoy doing wool applique, you definitely want her book. I call it the Wool Applique Bible because it's a great book to have if you want to learn how to do more stitches and more projects. Okay, I'm ready to go ahead and stitch. I have a knot in my thread, and I'm going to go ahead and come up like I normally would doing a blanket stitch. So I'm coming up into my gray right next to the red berry, come straight up. Now I'm going to go down into the center, and you have to make sure you find the center of your berry. Go down into the center and come right back up right where you came up out of the gray. So I'm going to make that first stitch, and that's what you do when you make a blanket stitch. There we go. That's my first stitch. Now I'm going to pull my thread taut. I'm going to pull my thread to the left using my thumb as tension. Now I'm going to go back into this same hole that I came up out of the berry. I'm going to come in there. I'm going to give myself a space about 1/4 of an inch because this berry is quite large. And I went over my thread. Just a second, let me pull this up. There we go. I'm going to pull it taut so I don't have any looping going on with my thread. Down in the same hole, come back up 1/4 inch away from where I came up before. I'm going over my thread. My needle is going over my thread. And all I'm doing is making a blanket stitch using the same hole in the center continuously. But I'm always creating tension on this thread so that it lays nice and flat. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way around. I'm using a size 22 needle, which is the larger of the chenille needles. And I'm using this one because it's just easier for all of you to see it while I'm stitching. Typically, because I'm a seasoned wool appliquer, I normally use a size 24, which is a smaller needle. And as you get experience, you'll probably go to a size 24, only because it's smaller and it seems to go through the wool a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm using a variegated red. I'm sure you can tell the difference in the color of this. And I love variegated threads, just the way they look. There we go. Oops, I've got a little bit, see this little loop right here? I'm kind of glad that happened because I can show you how to fix it. Pull this thread up a little bit, pull it up, and fix this. I didn't have enough tension on it. There, now I'm just fixing it. There we go. You don't want this thread to be loose, and that happens when you don't keep enough tension on your thread. Sorry, my thread keeps grabbing a hold of my watch band. I need to take that off. All right, I'm coming to the very last one. Here we go. Come in, and that's the last one. Look at how that looks. Okay. Now I'm going to go straight down where I finished my last stitch. There we go. Straight down. I'll pull it taut. That way it keeps it nice and straight. Come to the back. Grab a thread. Actually, I'm going to grab some fiber on this one. I create my loop. I go through the loop 2 times. That's how we create a surgical knot. There we go, and pull. All right, so that is done. That's how you do a button stitch on a berry. All right, now I'm going to come over here to the gift tag, and I have taken my micron pen, which is permanent, and I've just very lightly, I've printed right here 2, and then 2 dots. I'm going to go ahead and load up my thread. Now we're going to do a running stitch here. Let me see, what does she call it in the book? Sometimes, depending on what region you're from in this country, things are called, different stitches are called different things. So let me just see what she is referring to in the book. Let me go back and find this. Here we go. She's calling it a back stitch. Okay, which I can call it also a back stitch. I can also call it a running stitch. All right, 1, 2, 3, wrapping my needle. This is how I put a knot in. I showed that before. All right, so I'm gonna just do a back stitch. And to do that, I'm gonna come up, sorry, I'm turning my project around here. I'm gonna come up right into my letter, the top of my T. Let's see here. There we go. I come up there. I don't come up on the edge. I came up in the middle of my T actually. And I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go now to the edge of my T, and I'm gonna go to the end of my T. I only need two back stitches on this. So I started up in the middle, I went to the end, there's one stitch, and there's the second. I'm gonna go back down in the middle again. All right, that's all it is there. This is a very small letter, so I don't have to backstitch much, to be honest with you. I'm gonna come up in the middle of this one, in the middle of the bottom of the T. I'm gonna go back up to the middle of the top, go down, but then come up at the bottom of the letter T. I hope you can see what I'm doing well enough. There you go, there's a stitch. And now I'm gonna go back down in the middle. All right, now you can see my letter T. I am not going to cut my thread. I'm just gonna jump over here to the O. There we go, grab a stitch. I'm gonna come to the back. Now sometimes when you're doing circles, take smaller stitches, okay? It helps create the smoothness of having something that's round. I hope that makes sense. Smaller stitches will make it look a little bit smoother when you're doing a round edge. So I came up, I made that stitch. I'm gonna grab right where I came out, and I'm gonna come over here on the other side of the O. There we go. There's that stitch. And I'm gonna come here. I'm going down here, and I'm gonna come out on the other side of my thread. There it is. Down. I'm sorry if this is boring, but I know some of you don't know how to do this, so I'm hoping that you can see me well enough and I'm explaining it well enough to you. I hope so. And again, if you have the little reference book, I think I talked about that in the last video. Maybe I didn't. I can't remember. I might just show it to you one more time. There we go. This is my last stitch. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to come back up exactly where I need that last stitch to be. There it is. And one last stitch, which is straight down. Okay, there's my O. All right, now I'm just going to go ahead and do 2 colonial knots. I don't like to do French knots. I kind of like the little colonial knot. But this time, instead of wrapping it real heavy, I'm going to, remember we have to be parallel to each other. Needle goes over, under, wrap, wrap. I'm only going to wrap my needle twice on this one. Go back down where you came up. Grab your thread, pull it taut on your needle all the way down to the fabric. Hold it with your thumb, push the needle through, holding it with your thumb, slowly pull your thread so it doesn't knot. There you go. That's your colonial knot. I'll do the next one as well. Okay, my needle is over, parallel, over, under, wrap, wrap. Okay, just always be consistent with how many times you wrap. Pull the thread taut, hold it with your thumb and your fingernail, and pull slowly so you don't create a knot till you get to the, all right, there you go. Don't let go of that thread until you get to the fabric, and then pull it tight. All right, so this is what we've got. This is a woven, so look at it, it's starting to fray. But you know what, it's okay. It's okay that it's fraying, because you know what, I'm gonna go now and I'm going to apply, oops, I got 2 pieces of wool here. I'm gonna apply this to the back. So I'm gonna go to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna cut this so that it's 5 inches, same size as the top. And I am going to sew all the way around it this time, because I am gonna show you how she shows you how to do this in the book. So I showed last time how Karen Montgomery showed me how to do the seam on the back of a pillow or a table runner. This time I'm gonna do what she shows in the book, and that way I can show you how to whip stitch the back closed. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. This will be sewn, and then I'll show you how to put the chenille thread on around the edges. All right, everyone, I'm back. I have now taken this piece and I have gone around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. when I do something like a pillow, or let's say let me think, a doll. When I teach a doll class, I always bring my stitch length from 12 stitches per inch is what we use when we're doing piecing. I bring it up to 20 stitches per inch when I'm going to fill something so that nothing can get through there. So I always bring my stitch length down to 20 stitches per inch. And then you're going to come in, you're going to cut the corners without cutting the thread, of course, getting into the seam. And then what she has told you to do is you're going to pull the back away from the top, and you're going to put a little hole in the back. So this is what she does. You just be careful not to cut the front. All right, so we cut a little hole there. You have to have a decent size hole to get this through here, just so you know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this inside out. We also call this birthing. And maybe you've done this with a table runner before. All right, let's get this popped out, guys. Oh, boy, it takes a minute. I might have to make a larger hole. I don't know. Sometimes after you do this, you need to press your item again. So I'm going to turn my iron on real quick here. There we go. Because sometimes it can get wrinkled. All right, and then I'm going to pop out all the corners so that they're nice and flat. There we go. Got a little thread sticking out. We'll pull that out of the way. And this corner. And this corner. Okay. So I'm going to do something different. I wasn't planning on doing this. Let me grab my friction pin and get that last corner. Push it out a little bit. You don't want to use something that's sharp because otherwise you'll pop a hole right through it. Okay, see how it's a little bit wrinkled right now? So I'm just going to take my little travel iron, give it a little steam. There we go. Got a little wet, but that's okay. All right, so now we have this hole in the back. Now the last time we made a project, the little gingerbread man right here, we used fiber fill, and I used this poly fill that is by Pellon. It's called Perfect Loft. Love this stuff. But as I was finishing this, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to make this into a pin cushion. And I like to use ground walnut shells for pin cushions. I don't know if any of you have ever used this. I'm sure most of you have if you've done a pin cushion. But the reason why we use ground walnut shells, there's a couple reasons. Number one, it's really wood. Now in mine, I have dried lavender in here. I grabbed the wrong bag. I grabbed the one with lavender. But you know what? It smells good. I'm going to use it. Okay, so ground walnut shells. They come like this. They're all ground up. Number one, they don't get damp. Number two, mice don't get into this and eat it. And number three, bugs do not live in this. So, and when you take your needle and you push it into your pin cushion every single time, number one, it makes the pin cushion weighted. And number two, it sharpens your pins every time you put it in and out of there. So what I'm going to do is just take this little funnel. I'm going to fill it all up. And I'm going to have to come back after I fill this up. And I just kind of push it all into the corners, get it as full as I want. And then we're going to whip stitch this closed. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to put the chenille all the way around the edges. So I went ahead, I know I did something unusual. So remember how we had the back opened? I filled it with my ground walnut shells and then I whip stitched that up. And then what I did is I cut out a piece of my cream wool, and I do have a piece of Steam to Seam 2 light on here, so I just cut out a heart and I ironed that down. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think I'm going to make this, because you know on the front it says 2. I think I'm going to make this for Jeannie. She's one of my employees. She's new to quilting, so I think I'm going to give her this pin cushion. She can use it as a little Christmas ornament at Christmas, and then when she wants, she can flip it over and she can use it as a pin cushion. And I think I'm going to do this after I'm done with the video, but I'm going to stitch around with a blanket stitch, I think in red. And then I'm going to put her name in, Jeannie, in here. And then this will be for her for Christmas. I'll show it to you in the next video. But right now we're going to finish it up by taking our chenille embellishment. And all I'm going to do is come here on the edge. I'm going to go ahead and grab some of the fabric and the wool. I'm going to create a knot. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to make a loop, just like so, and I'm going to go through it, remember, twice. I'm going to go through that little loop twice, creating a little surgical knot. There we go, my tail's stuck in there, we go, and pull. And you can pull as tight as you want. It's not going to go anywhere. And then I'm going to trim off the extra tail. And all you have to do this is grab the chenille, lay it right on top like so, and I'm going to whip stitch this on. I leave a little bit of a tail because when I join them together, I'll just cut it off because you can just sew them right up to each other. And I am not using regular thread. I'm actually using my chenille thread. And as you can see, I'm sorry, not chenille thread, my Valdani, my Valdani Pro Cotton. I'm using that because this chenille thread that I'm sewing on is so fluffy that when you pull it, see, you can't even see this other thread. So you don't even have to use regular sewing thread. Just use some of your Pro Cotton, go all the way around. I go about every 1/4 inch or so and just stitch it down. And you're gonna go all the way around the corners. And when you get to the very end, just bring up the other piece. Let me get to this other end. Let's just pretend we're getting to the ends. When I get to the end, I'll trim this off back to where I started. So let's just move that out of the way. I'll bring this piece right up to it and then sew it down, create a knot, and you will never even know where you started and where you ended. Okay? All right, that is it for this one. Let me just go ahead and bring this one back over, and I'm going to whip stitch that all the way around. All right, everyone, we are finished with class number 2, making this cute little bowl filler. And in our next class, I'm hoping you're enjoying these videos. If you have a question, you can leave it in the comment section. I will try to answer all of the questions. We'll see how many we get, and I'll answer them the best I can. Maybe I have to, answer them as time goes by as well. And then in our next class, class number 3, we're gonna make this cute little ornament. You can also set it in the bowl as well, but it is an ornament. And this is the little postage stamp. So I chose the little snowman. And in this one, you're gonna learn, let's see, do we have a new stitch on this? I don't think we have a new stitch, but I'm going to teach you how to do layering. So we will be talking about that in the next class. All right, have a fantastic day. And in the next session, we will also talk about 2 books that I suggest for wool applique. All right, don't forget, you guys, be inspired.